Hello everyone, my name is Tammy Fenter and I'm the Build Applications Engineer for Modular Design Centres in Durban.
Hi everyone. Today I'd like to expose you or introduce you or remind you, depending on where you're at, with Revit about a little tool under Collaborate called the Interference Check tool. Now, many of you may know about it. Maybe you use it quite often. Maybe you don't use it often at all. Maybe you've seen it around. Maybe you kind of just have avoided it because it hasn't seemed like it's been useful or helpful or anything to your project. But let me assure you that the interference check tool is actually quite a nifty little tool to have, specifically if you're planning on going towards collaboration stage much later on in the project. And what the interference check tool does is it allows you to run checks inside your model while you're building to eliminate any kind of unnecessary clashes. So in an ideal world, we will have a model where the floors fit perfectly and they don't intersect with walls and they don't intersect with any of your other kind of environments, like here we would have a wall and a floor that looks like it's kind of half intersecting there. So in an ideal model or an ideal world, I guess you wouldn't really have that problem. But admittedly, we can't always avoid these kind of practices. But what we can do is use the interference check tool to check for us if there are any major clashes worth noting. So if I go to interference check, you can say run interference check, and it gives you kind of two categories. So you've got your current project, and then you've got, you can run it obviously against your current project, but you can also, if there's any links inside your project, you can check the links on here as well, and I'll demonstrate that in an example a little bit later on. But here we can, for instance, kind of say, okay, let's just run a check on, say, floors versus railings. Okay, and when I click OK, it's going to run the check, and right now I can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 railings. And I can now kind of zoom out and check where all these problems are taking place. So over here, you'll see this little issue. If I click here, you'll see this little issue over here. And if I remember correctly, you'll see here that, I'll just change, you'll see here that this rail is kind of intersecting with this floor, which is causing a bit of heartache. Now, what's quite cool is if you sort out the problem, so for instance, if I go to my model and say, okay, great, I don't want this to intersect anymore, I can select it. I'm just going to change the base offset to 300, click apply. Now it's no longer intersecting. So if we run that interference check again, we'll be able to just go to show last report. We're going to refresh, and you'll see it's gone now from having seven kind of interferences to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 interferences, which means that that has now been resolved. So as your interferences are being resolved inside your project, it's going to remove those from the list, and you'll be able to keep tabs on the items that are important to you. So now furthermore, we're able to run interference checks on projects with links in it as well. So oftentimes when we're working with consultants, we might just want to see, hey, are there any pipes clashing with any beams? Are there any doors clashing with any structure? So there's obviously questions that we ask during the coordination process, even very early on in design, which we can start eliminating before it actually gets to crunch time for on-site coordination. So in this instance, we're now able to use interference check to ask these questions and solve these problems. So when I go to my interference check over here, I might want to run an interference check on this new project. I can select my current project, and I might want to check if there are any ceilings in my project that are interfering with my structural model. So let's just select all of these. I can check if anything is happening there. I can click OK. And it will show you here that I've got some ceilings clashing with some structural columns. Likewise, we can run another interference check to see if there are any doors, for instance, clashing with any of my items in my structural Maybe let's just keep it simple for now. Let's just say for structural framing. So any beams, if there's doors and beams or doors and columns, let's just run that one. And we can see here that there's a door clashing with some structural framing. So when we select the item we want to go and interrogate, we can just select the door, we can say show, and eventually you can just keep clicking show until it says that we want to look for a view that we can see this actual door. And so we can click OK, it'll take us to the door. And you'll see here this roller shutter door is obviously causing some heartache. So that pretty much sums up our video on the interference checker. Yeah, and hope you guys have learned something.